Hi there. I've been thinking for some time about doing a live set, and just recently with all the Slim Blue tracks that I've been finishing, I think I'm getting to a point where it's feasible. So I want to start putting it together, and unlike my other instructional videos, this one is more like an exploration of my thought process, and how I'm going to start putting this thing together. So it will be over multiple parts, and yeah, we'll just we'll see how it goes. As always, if you've got anything to add or anything you can help me even, please feel free to comment below or drop me a line. bill@brooksaudio.co.uk if you want to drop me an email. So let's get to it. Okay, so here you can see one of my tracks, Harder, from my recent Lockdown EP on Sound System Bass Rock, and this is the one I'm going to use to experiment with to start putting this live set together. You will see as I use a lot of group structures, and I'll end up with very typically vocals on one group, melodics and bass instruments, tracks all grouped together on a subgroup, which will allow me to do processing if I want to over the whole melodic and bass all together, and then beats I have a separate group as well. So what I actually want to do is I want the melodics and the basses to be on separate tracks in my live set setup. I'm probably going to split them out even more than that eventually, but just for the interest of this first exploratory session, I'm going to just rename this basses and rename this beats, and then I'm just going to export that basically. So I'm going to select all this. This is for the pre-master session, so it's all the loop from when I exported the 24-bit 48K WAV to send to the mastering engineer, however many months ago that was. All of my loop is set up appropriately, but you're going to want to create a loop that covers the whole track, the whole arrangement. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to multi-select these 4 groups and go to export, and I'm going to use the rendered track as selected tracks only. Then when I go to export, these are my settings that I generally use, 24-bit, 48K. If I go to export and then go to my Slim Blue folder, live set, I've got one set up here. I'm going to create a new folder for this track, this song called Harder. And then I'm going to work out what the file name should be. I'm just going to call it Harder and then put space dash space. And then what that's going to do, because I'm exporting multiple selected tracks, it will use the track name. So it'll put Harder space dash space vocals, melodics, basses and beats. It uses the track name or the group name, and it inserts those into the audio file name automatically. So I'm going to hit save, and then we'll fast forward until the process is done. Okay, so we're at the end of the render now. It's dithering now, and sorting out bit depths and sample rates and things. So there we go. So I've exported that successfully. So what I can do now is create a new project, and within Ableton, I will not going to save my pre-master. I am going to make a new project within Ableton. So this is going to be the foundation of my live set. Yeah, exciting. So yeah, I think I've got about between 7 and 10 tracks that are either finished or about to go to mastering. So I think I should be able to do an hour of live set. It's just how I do it. I'm still not sure, as you know. Aha. So we're not going to start with any synths. I'm going to just do audio tracks, I think, to begin with. So I'm going to save this in my Slim Blue live set folder, and this is going to be live set master 2020 version 1. This now needs, I'm going to put the tempo in 132. I'm going to start out in this view, in the timeline view, and I'm going to bring in those exports that I did from Harder. And as you can see there, the file names are, as I said, Harder, space dash space, basses, vocals, beats, melodics, etc. So if I drag this onto the timeline, I can use command here to put them onto different tracks. Because I set the tempo right, I'm hoping that it's going to warp them at 132. No, it hasn't. Okay, so I'm going to select them all, turn warp off. I'm going to make sure that they're all starting from the start. So dragging this arrow back so that they all start right from the top. And then I'm going to try warping them now. Hopefully they'll all warp in at the right tempo. 132, 132. Yeah, grand, okay. So I'm just going to turn the master down so that I don't rinse you, and I'm going to turn the click down as well. In fact, I'll turn that down a bit more because that's really annoying. So let's have a look. Okay. Yeah, that seems right. Yeah, and you can see that the kind of important things happen on the bars. So I'm confident that that's right now. So happy day. So that's the beginning. So the next thing to do here is to separate this up into its different sections. So it's quicker to do this on the timeline. So for example, here, this is going to be my melodic or instrumental intro. I'm going to do vocal intro and breakdown, I think. Or maybe I'll do breakdown separately. Then I'm going to do the first 16 bars, the second 16 of the drop, third 16 of drop 1, long breakdown, then drop 2, 16, 16, and then outro. Okay, that looks like quite a good arrangement to me. And so I'm going to be able to map this onto the push now. I hope you guys can see, and turn the display light and all the brightness up as much as I can. So hopefully on the video you can see more or less clearly what's going on the push. Yeah, so if you select all of these and then click and drag, but then hit tab, you can tab across to the clip view and drop these in, and all of those different clips that we've created effectively here become different clips in the view as well. So that's that same arrangement. So that's a very quick way of experimenting with that. So now if I go to the session view, I can see that track's laid out nicely here. So that's the start. Vocals, breakdown. And then maybe, so that's, so 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so I might make these clips a slightly darker colour, so I know that they're the drop, maybe. I don't know, as with a lot of this, I'm making it up as I go along, so I'm just going to make them a different colour. Now that doesn't seem to really make any difference on the push. There's very subtle difference on the push. Maybe I need to change the colour completely. There we go. So red, I have to make them really bright colours to make a difference. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I have to have a think about this. That's not different enough. And then, yeah, I don't know. Yeah, not sure if I like this, but yeah, you get the idea anyway, so that I've got a real clear visual cue as to what's a breakdown part of this and what's a drop. Yeah, okay, cool. Now, one thing that I'd like to explore today, or the main thing that I'd like to explore today, is using, so we've already got a very basic kind of sequence going here, or I've given myself the ability to sequence this from the push. Now I've got 8 tracks here. I mean, you can move across if you want to, so you can look at more than 8 tracks or 8 lanes, eight channels, whatever you want to call it, in Ableton. But really, I don't want to be navigating around using these controls. I'd rather be just see 8 main things. So that might end up being, well, probably actually going to end up having beats first, then bass, melodics and vocals, yeah, but maybe beats will be split into beats and breaks. Bass will be subs and top basses. Melodics, I could have like 3 different melodies, because there's often quite a lot of melodic stuff going on, so you could have pads, pianos and leads or something like that, or arpeggios, pianos, leads, and then vocals in the last column here. I think that's how I'll split it down. But the good thing about this is that these can be groups. So with these channels, they don't have to be individual channels. They can be groups. So if I did want to, for example, group beats and bass together, make that group 1. We don't know, it is just a temporary thing. But if I then close that group, then you can see on the push how now group 1 is represented by this first column. So that means that I can have, as I'm exporting from the individual groups, from the individual tracks, sorry, from the individual songs, I can export more than I think I need, and then group them together in the live set. The only disadvantage of that is, of course, processor power, but the advantage is flexibility. So if I decide later down the line that I want to do something crazy with the breaks, but not with the beats, so not with the kick and snare, but just with the breaks, if I've gone down the route of bouncing all the beats and breaks as one file, then I'm kind of limiting myself there. So I'm going to probably be a little bit more expansive with how I look at this. But that's the sequencing side, and that's my thought process at the moment with sequencing. What I've got here, and I bought this specifically for this reason, when I first got a Push 1, I thought this looked like a good addition because it's very small, fits in a bag, cheap to replace, probably it's a bit plasticky, and I haven't used it in anger really, so I don't know if it's gonna be sort of roadworthy. Probably not, but at least in the meantime I've got this as an extra control. Now, for those of you who've seen my audio effects racks tutorial, you will have seen me talking about this and the way I've got it configured, but just in case you haven't, I'm going to show you quickly my MIDI setup here. And if we find the input for the nano control, which is this one, you can see that track is not enabled. What that means is that when this sends MIDI CC, which is its default job, if you've got a synth, for example, loaded on a track in Ableton, and you start wiggling faders around, then you can very easily change parameters that you don't know you're changing. So you don't know what that synth has assigned internally to a certain MIDI CC. So if I have track disabled, that means that this won't give me any unpleasant surprises when I start adding synths into the project. Sync, so we're not worried about sync, MIDI synchronization as such with this particular controller. But I do want it to be a remote control, and that means that I can use it for as basically an assignable controller now. So for example, let's have a look at my beats. I'm just going to have a look in this track. What I'm going to do is add an auto filter. So this is a low pass filter, that's fine. And using the MIDI mapping control, so if I do Command M, I can map to frequency, I can map this control, this fader. So now my filter works like so. So let's have a little listen. Okay, so that's filtering the beats, which is what I want. What I kind of want as an effect is I want a bit more resonance. But if I just assign resonance to that same, or let's assign resonance to this knob, for example. So I can now achieve things like this with two hands. I can do resonance with my right hand and filter with my left. So I've got a good amount of independence here, so I can do some cool sweeps. Now that's nice, but it means I need to use two hands, so I haven't got a hand left to do anything else. So I was wondering if I could maybe achieve something using a single fader. Now, unfortunately, there's no curves. As far as I'm aware, you can correct me if you know otherwise, but I don't know how I can create a curve. It might be with Max MSP, I think you probably can. But I'm trying to think of how that might work. What I need is an input to output curve creator. So I probably could do it in Max MSP, or there might even be something already out there where I assign rather than assigning the fader directly to the resonance, I assign the fader to the input of the curve, and then the output of the curve gets mapped to the resonance. So I can draw like a flat line up to a certain point and then bring the resonance up. So for example, when I move this fader for the first half of its movement, resonance stays at a certain level. And then when it gets into its second half of its throw, the resonance just jumps up to a fixed level for the rest of it. So I can get that sort of similar effect to what I was doing before. So I'm going to look into that. But for now, let me have a play around to see if I can achieve something similar. And I have already had a little play with this. So yeah, so you can see that if we minimize those values in there and we say start at 30% and finish at 60, for example, then we can see that, look, I get a bit of a resonant spike when I get up high. But as it goes lower, where I've got more chance of damaging the sound system, it's not going to cause any issues. So let's try 20, and so at the top it's 50, at the bottom, yeah. So as I get down here, it's not really doing anything wild, and as I go higher, it starts to do something a bit wilder with the resonance. So maybe that's still a bit too much. So 20 and 40. Yeah, so now with a single fader, I get more of a nice sweep, so that's pretty sweet. I don't want this filter on all the time, of course, so I'm going to assign as well, I'm going to map to this button here, I'm going to map that on, and this is a momentary thing. Again, I'm not sure if I want to make it toggle. I think I have to do that in the controller itself. But yeah, so I can play. it's a bit, yeah, there's a bit of a lag on the when I release, so I'll have to practice that. But that would just be, after a while, that would be instinctive, how long before the beat you'd need to let go of it to make it work, you know, for a drop or something. But yeah, so that's kind of nice. That works quite well. In the meantime, until I find the curve creator. Okay, what's next? The other thing I was going to say about this is, which is quite nice. You can see that it lines up almost almost with these tracks. Yeah, so that's quite handy. It's, as a visual thing, I can see that this fader here all applies to my beats. Yeah, cool. Okay, so the next thing is to do a high pass, I think. So if I duplicate this, just Command D there, put that on a high pass filter, and then if I map the same controls to frequency and resonance, this one is going to be the top button here, and then let's have a look, resonance, but this time I want it to be the other way around. So minimum, do I? Let me see. Do I want it to be the other way around, or do I want it to be this way around again? Because I want it to be more resonant at the high frequency where it's less, where it's not going to hurt people's ears. Oh yeah, there we go. So if you look at this one, so the resonance peaks up as we go higher, so we'll get that more kind of a nice resonant sweep. And again, I'm not going to get loads of resonance in the low end, which is going to cause problems on the sound system. So yeah, that works nicely. And then I've got a third button in the middle here, so I'm going to just ignore what they say on them. But so that's high, low, and it probably makes sense to make a bandpass in the middle as well. But this time I'm not going to change the, I'm going to map that to the same control. I'm not going to change the resonance on the bandpass. I'm going to have that as a fixed resonance, and I'm going to assign this button to the middle one, so that becomes bandpass, and the resonance is what it is. And then you could even do combinations. And if I can hold down all three. Ah, cool. Yeah, so that's quite nice. So I'll probably duplicate that for the bass, maybe the bass, melodics, vocals. Yeah, so it'd be probably quite nice to this might just be my filter bank effectively. Or maybe I'll have different effects and different things for different, because it might not make sense. I could do things like a chorus, I don't know, phaser and frequency shifter for the melodics, and some kind of dubby stuff maybe for the vocals, like delay, reverb, and this could be assigned to the time maybe, or the decay on each of those. So as I push it up, I get a long decay for reverb, and then 2 different types of delay maybe. Yeah, it's just nice to be able to sort of do a bit of dub things up a bit. Of course, I've got the mixer up here, which I can also do dub stuff with, but that's independent of this now. So yeah, hopefully that was useful in my thought process and seeing the way I think things through. So yeah, please, as I said in the intro, if you want to leave a comment about anything you've seen or ask any questions, check it out below. If you want to support my work in doing this kind of thing, check out my Patreon. The link's also in the description. And please have a look at my other videos. Yeah, check the page regularly. If you're into this one, then come back for live set creation part 2. Big up, peace.